So we have a number of questions that came out of the Grief and Loss workshop. First one is, when I'm sad after a loss, how do I share that in an appropriate, healthy way with my young child? Children grieve differently at different stages of development. And actually my early work was on how children grieve and how to help them. And the important thing is that children know that grief is a normal human emotion. They do it. You know, you see a young child, when they are grieving, it's very visible. So it's not unfamiliar to them. The only concern they would have is, do you pull away from them when you're grieving? You can sit and cry and say, I'm sad because of such and such, and the child's quite easy with that. You know, they're concerned for you, but they're not threatened. But if you try to keep your tears behind closed doors, the child picks up on that and thinks, what have I done wrong? So it's really helpful and healthy to include children, to explain to them, as you would anything, that, you know, people feel different things when a loss happens. And even quite young children can understand that. I've had babies come into sessions and the parent has started to cry and the baby looks a little worried, but if the parent holds the baby and cuddles him, he falls asleep. You know, it's not a big issue. Another question. My husband does not want to talk about losses. Is there anything I can do to support him in sharing? Actually, the best thing is not to push him to share. It was interesting, for years and years, the child care and the adult psychology books around grief and loss talked about one style of grieving as a healthy style. Ken Doka, who does a lot of work with the American Hospice Society and is a Lutheran pastor and gerontologist in the East, talks about two styles of grief. He's done some research on this, and he said the style he calls the intuitive style is the style that had been taught for years, and that's the sharing style. It feels good to share. It's great to be able to cry and to let it out. And many people find that helpful, particularly women find that helpful. The other style he calls the instrumental style. The person tends to keep it in, but they do something quiet and productive, often honoring the loss. And while they're doing it, they're thinking and they're feeling and they're sorting out. If someone were to be with them while that was happening, they might share a little bit, but they actually feel more depressed if they do a lot of sharing. More men have this style. And both are very helpful, but you get lots of situations where the man and the woman are grieving differently, and they're both thinking the other's wrong, and both trying to get the other to be like them. And two people who should be supporting each other are going further apart. Of course, both styles we can take to extremes. But if you get somebody who's very introverted or very extroverted, that fits in this as well. I would say that, you know, if you talk to him about his grieving style, he probably is an instrumental griever. And if you can honor that in him, he can feel a whole lot better about it. And it can be easier for you. Instrumental grievers need to be told that it is helpful just to sit and listen to the intuitive griever. You know, as you're sharing, he's sitting there thinking, what can I do to help her? But to say, the most helpful thing is just to let me share. He won't really understand, but he'll do it, and then it'll be good for both of you. What he needs probably is to be given space, or to do something with him quietly, but not be asking all the time, how's it going, how are you doing, how are you feeling? And then the relationship can grow stronger. I was unkind and left a door closed to someone I love, and that person died. How can I heal? Guilt is really common in grieving. About 85% of people will experience some level of guilt, ranging from regret up to I feel I did or didn't do something that caused this. If it comes to an unexpected, tragic kind of loss, the guilt can be even higher, approaching 100%. I see guilt actually as a positive emotion done wrong most of the time. It's a motivator. It's the only emotion that asks us to look at, do I have a part in this? And do I need to change my behaviors, my attitudes in order to live better, safer? If we feel guilty and listen to the guilt, then we can make some changes, obviously not for the past, but for the present. But if we just feel guilty and start restricting ourselves, start punishing ourselves, we won't be any better now. In fact, we'll be worse. Guilt is trying to help us to live better. And if we listen to it, in A Path Through Loss, I have a 3-step process for working through guilt. And the first is to listen to what the guilt is saying. And then the second is, what do I need to do about it? Do I need to learn some anger management skills? I felt bad that I'd blown up at my friend. And I think I've got an inappropriate way of dealing with my anger. I think I need to do something about that. We can make changes. So definitely there's some healing that can be done. Definitely. I don't want to be a caretaker for my father. I don't have a choice. How do I deal with this resentment? Yeah, that's a hard one these days when we often feel pressured to do things that we don't want to do. That's where I think we can rely too on support systems. We can work things out. It may very well be that there are other people who are willing to take part of the role of helper on, whether you have to pay those people or whether there'd be just people in that individual's life already. There's an experience I call the grapevine, which works real well. People always say, I wish people would talk to me about it, but nobody ever asks, or I wish they wouldn't. I say, put out your needs via the grapevine. I bet you there's at least one person in your circle, at church, at home, in your family, in your sports team, whatever, that if you tell that person some information, they will spread it faster than an email. And then people know what you want. Some people will always think they know better and won't heed the suggestion, but many people will feel relieved. And if you put out, I'm needing to care for him now, I want everyone to know that, and if anyone is able to help in any way, I'd sure appreciate it. Because people don't want to intrude. They don't want to push in. But if they get a clear invitation, you may find that there's others who really want to be part of it. We need community. And often community is there, but we don't realize it. How do you get past the anger issue, and how do you deal with your anger? How do you find your anger issues? I always start with some of the small angers in our life. What do you do when something just goes wrong? What do you do when the water heater breaks down? What do you do when you were waiting for this sale and you wanted these slacks and you go in and get them and they're all out? Even the small issues of losses of anger can tell us something about what our needs are when we're angry, how we express it, do we express it in a healthy way or not. So it's just getting to know it on a gentler level at first, I think can then help us. We can practice other ways. I remember my dad always said, don't share your weakness. Don't let your pain out, or other people will get you for it. He was, quite strict and patriarchal. And when he died, I felt quite devastated, but I felt I shouldn't share it. But I had some friends who came to me and said, we would really like to be part of your grieving and part of your healing. And I was able to change some of my attitudes and behaviors so that now, although it's kind of a little knee-jerk reaction whenever I have a loss to kind of just do it on my own, I'm much easier at reaching out. So we can do that with anger. We can do that with any emotion or any issue. We can learn to do it in a different way. Thank you.